PCW Torch brings you the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show. It's time to talk this week's WWE Monday Night Raw.
Javier, do you expect to see Dominic or Balor take on the Usos now that the Judgment Day has earned a tag team title shot? Am I more excited than I should be about prison tough Dominic maybe holding gold?
I'll be honest, if Sami Zayn were in the place where Sami Zayn usually is instead of where he is, I think I would have liked to see the three of them interact, because Sami Zayn was on the same level as like a Dominic. That'd be awesome, but Sami Zayn has more important fish to fry at the moment.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole prison thing has been just a trip. The now I know what Martha Stewart feels like. Just
See, my take on that is that line would have worked 5 years ago. I feel like might be something one of the writers came up with, and someone had to catch Dominic up on who Martha Stewart was. But I still laughed. I just am worried. I'm worried. It worked with me. I'm worried it didn't resonate with the audience because it didn't get a big crowd reaction. But yeah, that was it was a very good line. Again, maybe 5 years too late.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Are you saying I'm old, Wade?
No, I'm saying the writers in WWE wrote a line for Dominic, who is maybe too young for that to be believable. But who knows what? Maybe Dominic's into Martha Stewart. I don't know. So the third hour of Raw was like almost entirely the tag team turmoil match. Did you like it? Is that a good way to fill an hour of TV time, Javier? Did that work for you?
Nothing says we're watching a hold pattern a show than a turmoil match of any sort on the show to take up a third of it. But it's fine. It's an entertaining way to pass the time, and the wrestlers that go out there actually go to wrestle. And I love the fact that there's always the one team that almost goes the full hour. If not the full hour, because it's, you usually don't see WWE wrestlers wrestle for that long period of time.
There was a time where Damian Priest at like the 45 minute mark looked about as sweaty and tired and near death as Shane McMahon does after 30 seconds under bright lights.
Yep. Yep. He definitely put in the work.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, it was fun. It's like 48, 49 minutes. I mean, not all of it was exciting. There were some moments in Anderson and Gallows. I think there was a chin lock or headlock by Balor where the crowd started chanting, maybe getting a little restless. It wasn't loaded with star power, but it had some good energy with the Street Profits, who I think were the highlight of the match. Shelton and Zedric were fine. Otis and Gable were fun, kind of in a bit of a babyface role. And it was a creative spot at the end to get Balor injured, so Dominic had to replace him in the match. But yeah, I mean, I didn't.
By the way, it was a good swerve, because the moment they put Dominic in the match, I'm like, okay, this is their out.
Oh, I know. Yes, and I thought it was also a swerve, because I thought they're just gonna disqualify them and then just either just give the gift the match at that point, or else, I don't know, have maybe at that point Ziggler and Ali run out and go, we made up, we're gonna wrestle after all, or bring somebody else back into the match who wasn't in it. So yeah, a lot of things crossed my mind, but it was pretty quick before we found out that Dominic would be taking his spot. Priest, Dominic's body language and facial reactions are really fun, and then Ripley kind of slapping Priest like, you shouldn't have done that. No, Dominic's getting the match. And then Dominic's got to play this like, I don't want to do this, but I know I'm on camera, and I'm claiming I'm prison tough, and I'm next to Ripley here, Rhea here, mommy, and so I need to act tough. And you can see that struggle going on with his body language and facial expression. So a year ago, I would not have expected Dominic to be the highlight of a 3-hour episode of Raw early in 2023, but he might have been. Javier, I don't know who else would be competing with him for most entertaining of the night. It certainly wasn't JBL.
No.
Yeah.
Ziggler? Nah, not Ziggler.
No, not Ziggler either.
Not Ziggler, not ever. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Because, I mean, the only other thing that was I got to chuckle at was the interaction with Miz, but that was also involving Dominic, so.
Yes, yeah, it was a lot of Dominic on this show. So what do you think of the follow-up? Was there any anything entertaining that they left on the table in terms of Dominic. I will say this before I throw to you. I'm really glad that Kevin Patrick acknowledged that he heard Dominic only spent a few hours in county jail, because you want this to be not WWE trying to put one over on the fans. You want it to be Dominic trying to put one over on the fans. Corey Graves going along with it, but Kevin Patrick should be wise to it and be willing to communicate that maybe a little cautiously, given the circumstance. But he's conveying, I heard that maybe it's only in county jail. So I'm glad they introduced that into the mix, because that was the punchline. But I'm a little worried that until Patrick pushed that, they weren't really establishing that well enough.
Yeah, and I think it was, at least as far as the people, was it The Miz who first brought it up, which was my sources tell me that you were just in county jail, and
yes.
And you're here, you're standing in front of me with a $500 flannel shirt. I got a kick out of that. Pretending you were surrounded by Dementors, which got the Harry Potter crowd.
He was cosplaying Conan, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like when police officers show up on Raw, like, oh, the police are here, and they're like, the Halloween police costume outfits still have the folds in them from being wrapped in plastic for the last year on a shelf, and they've never been washed and they're still starched. Like, Dominic coming out like super tough, but in reality, like he's in a expensive, previously unworn flannel. Was a great line. When I'm trying to remember when if Miz said it first, I guess I'm trying to think if Miz said it first or Graves said it first. I guess Miz was the one who said he was in county jail. But Patrick did bring that up. I'm trying to remember at what stage he did, but I'm glad that they both did, and it was Patrick who was pushing back against Corey Graves during the match too. But yeah, I think Miz was actually the first one to bring that up. So
and for the live crowd, it was the Miz. So because they wouldn't have
that's a good point.
Kevin Patrick. So
yeah, and honestly, it could have been. I could be conflating Miz and Patrick in terms of the order, but I'm glad that Patrick wasn't co-conspirator in the lie or the exaggeration that Dominic was putting out there. So I mean, really, just a fun storyline. Pro wrestling. I don't say at its best it's fun, because that's not true. At its best, there's high stakes, and some some big stars, ideally a heel and a face, but oftentimes it's a face against a face in some sort of a dream match too, and the crowd just super into everything, and fighting for a title, fighting for something that matters. But it is fun when something like Dominic comes up and can be this much a part of a show and kind of sneak up on us. And be as entertaining as it is. It was fun. So yeah, did they leave anything else behind in terms of how to tell this fun story with Dominic in prison?
Well, I mean, I don't think so. But wrestling's also the other thing that wrestling does well is have the smug prick you want to see someone slap the taste out of their mouth. So
yes.
And then that's definitely the realm he's in. And yeah, I mean, they pretty much went. I hope they don't continue it too long, because sometimes that that you could run a joke into the ground. So mention it maybe here and there, but not as, because I mean, Graves went hard on it today, which is fine, but I could see it get grating if he's going this hard, every single time he's on camera.
Yeah. Yep. Is Dominic good enough in the ring to capitalize on this beyond this being sort of a fun little thing that we enjoy for a couple months? Is there anything that's going to hold him back from sustaining some sort of momentum after this with him and Rhea in Judgment Day? Or is this something you think just can be a really fun act throughout 2023 and even beyond?
I mean, it's a mid-tier thing right now, obviously. Yeah. I don't think, and he, in terms of what he can do in the ring, he's okay for this kind of story where it's more of a story that you're telling in the ring than actually wanting to wow us with a with flashy moves and stuff like that. But in bits and pieces, in spurts here and there, it's fun for the most part. When they've been doing more serious stuff, he's just been the the guy on the side, and whenever he would get involved, is just so he could take a loss for the team. Otherwise, he's just been there to be an annoyance and just be there for just to be there. This is him with more of a spotlight because of the story that they're telling, which is buying time. If it just feels like this is likely biding time until they set up whatever they're going to do at, by the Rumble towards WrestleMania, because I don't think this is going to be like something that's going to have any sort of payoff down the road in WrestleMania. I think this is just to bide time to likely. I'm assuming Edge and Beth Phoenix may be coming back. I don't know about Beth Phoenix necessarily, because I thought it was going to be Beth Phoenix and Rhea Ripley were going to face off, but now with the whole Ronda Rousey out of the championship picture and things being realigned, who the hell knows what's going on there. But definitely, I'm assuming Edge will come back for the WrestleMania payday and try to get revenge for the umpteenth time on this team. And eventually you're going to have to go to Dominic and Rey Mysterio in some way, shape, or form. So.
Yeah. We'll see when and where Edge comes back. I know there's reports that he'll be back imminently and on some PLEs coming up. So we'll see where they fit him in. And I mean, we have the X factor, which is, does Vince McMahon look at all this and start hinting to Paul Levesque, or outright saying to Paul Levesque, I don't know if we want to do this. Maybe you want to do this instead. And then Paul Levesque's got to be like, all right, I know I always knew who the majority owner was, but now I know you're actually, pushing me in certain directions. So,
well, I mean, on the plus side, it doesn't, I mean, the card that you kind of see develop towards WrestleMania, I don't think is much of a departure from what Vince would do. It's more like how we got there. And a lot of the main, and the fact that you're actually not, booking it week to week on the fly with an eye towards where you're going. This is, well, we know where we're going, so how about we craft a story to get there?
Yeah. Yep. No, well put. All right, well, let's pause and introduce ourselves and get on to phone calls and emails. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Monday, January 9th, 2023. And I'm Wade Keller, the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter and the website pwtorch.com, and a variety of podcasts, some VIP exclusive, some free, like this one. And I'm joined by Javier Machado, who is a PW Torch contributor, a contributor to our website, and also to our podcast in various formats. Javier, welcome to the co-host chair for the full show tonight.
Thank you for having me on. You've kept me busy for the last few days.
Yes.
I'm earning my keep, so to speak.
You can have I don't know, February and March off. No, we don't want you. We don't want you to go away. Yes. Very good. So yeah, we're here talking Raw. We're live streaming at wadekellerpostshow.com. You can find the live stream link directly to the direct show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night within about 5 minutes or so after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown end. The link to the specific streams are found in my TV reports at pwtorch.com. So just check on the Keller TV report link and look for that link. That also includes the phone number and the email address, because you can contribute to the show by email or by calling into our switchboard. And speaking of which, our number is 347-215-8558. That's 347-215-8558. And you can also email Wade Keller Podcast at pwtorch.com. Wade Keller Podcast at pwtorch.com. Of course, you can also download the show afterwards and listen either on our free feed with ads and plugs or with our VIP feed for our VIP members, where the ads and plugs are edited out. Full details on VIP membership and all the perks, including a 30-plus year library of podcasts, retro radio shows, newsletters, and articles, is available at pwtorch.com/govip. Support us, support our approach to pro wrestling journalism and analysis, and get a lot in return. New content daily. That's VIP exclusive. And like I said, unmatched archives. Just a crazy, deep library of fascinating content. pwtorch.com/govip. All right, so we want to hear from you. If you're listening to the show live, give us a call. When you call, push 1 on your keypad to indicate that you want to be brought onto the show. And you can also email us at wadekellerpodcast@pwtorch.com. As previously mentioned, we'd love to get your opinion on the show, or anything on Raw, that is, or on anything we're saying on the show tonight as we continue on. All right, so let's do it. Let's kick things off with William from San Diego, California. William, thanks for calling. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. So I thought the show was fine, maybe a little bit, if not maybe a little bit on the mediocre, uneventful side. And let me know if you guys agree or disagree, but I thought that there was a noticeable lack of star power throughout the show. Bianca, Becky, and I know Sammy isn't technically a Raw guy, but he's been showing up so often that he kind of is one now, just by extension. But yeah, I feel like they probably Lashley came back from the suspension, so that's nice. But yeah, I feel like trying to put myself in the shoes of a person who, in Alabama paying $50 or $80 or whatever, being there in attendance, I probably would have been disappointed from some of the absences on tonight's show. What do you guys think?
Yeah, this sort of Raw felt a bit like a commercial for SmackDown, with the real star power coming from a stripped down version of the Bloodline, and then it being built around the Usos defending the tag titles. It helped that Bobby Lashley came back. But yeah, I mean, and Seth in theory had a segment, so that counts for something. But not having a world champion who is at Raw regularly hurts in one way. I'm not saying it's still not worth doing for all the positives of having a unified champion, an undisputed unified championship. But Reigns is on a more limited schedule than some other people at his level have been. So it did feel stripped down. No Becky. Javier, did that jump out to you? And how do you think they did kind of filling in as best they could? Like you said, the tag turmoil match is one way to fill an hour that you maybe, in Paul Levesque's case, he wishes he didn't have to fill with the talent depth he has.
Yeah, not only that, but also a lot of videos replaying stuff that has happened more than usual. the more of the extreme side, letting you know what's going on, as opposed to just like give you a brief refresher, which felt like they were stalling for time. But yeah, I mean, there were no Belair, so no championship there. There was Rollins and Theory, who are bigger stars on there, didn't have a match. And I mean, when I mentioned that a tag team turmoil match is a sure bet that you're watching a holding pattern show, having Dolph Ziggler on your show is a marker for a lot of stars aren't going to be there or wrestling. So yeah, I mean, it did cross my mind, particularly like around the 10 o'clock, which is I seldom lately have had to look at my watch to see how much is left in the show, and this was one of them, because I'm like, wow, there's not really much going on.
I give them credit. I asked you this, but I give them credit for creativity. Like, having Ziggler come out there and be a semi-competitive opponent with some some title history, to lose to Solo Sikoa, to give Solo a bit of a boost. Having the timing of bringing Lashley back and having a development in the MVP situation, having whatever producer got to dress up as Uncle Howdy this week out there to forward the storyline with everything going on there, including Alexa Bliss. And Bayley added something. Her whole crew was there. Kevin Owens is right there with Seth, I guess, is the top babyface that's consistent on the male side on the show, and bringing JBL back when he hasn't been around a lot. You can argue that hurts a show, but there is some star power there. And then the presence, the aforementioned presence of at least some members of the Bloodline, the Usos and Solo. All of that, I think, added up to a passable use of the talent they had available, and I think they did a good creative job with it. It's sort of like, when you're low on groceries and it's dinner time, and it's like you kind of throw some things together, some leftovers, mix with something in the freezer, something in the cupboard you forgot about. You're like, this was actually pretty decent. I mean, not, I'm going to eat better in 2 days after a grocery shop, but this was pretty good. And that's kind of the feeling, the feeling I had watching this show. I think they did a pretty good job with the ingredients that they had to work with. The downside is this is the road to WrestleMania, and Kevin Patrick opened the show saying this is a good time to be a WWE fan, and at least he didn't say part of the WWE universe. And if it is, you kind of want a sense that bigger things are happening only a couple weeks out from the Rumble here. So that's the downside. Is this is the season when things are supposed to be really heating up, and I just don't know what kind of cards they can play to make it feel like it's getting heated up. So that's the downside, but I think they scrounged together a good meal out of limited ingredients, so to speak.
Yeah, and there was a lot of, sprinkled throughout the show, mentioning I'm going to be in the Rumble kind of thing, and they did it in a nice way, because normally it's like they set up a skit that's obvious for the wrestler involved to say, I'm going to be in the Rumble. And they've been a lot more circumspect about that, where they mention, hey, it'd be interesting, if I'm in the Rumble this year, then this is what I'm planning on doing. That sort of conversation where it feels more natural, as opposed to like, it's obviously a skit to say that I'm going to be in the Rumble. I kind of like that, for example, the interaction between Rhea Ripley and Candice LeRae, that kind of thing. It felt more natural, as opposed to, being just, force fed, well, I'm going to beat you, but this time at the, whatever.
Yeah. All right, cool. We'll go back to William. Anything else you want to bring up?
Going back to the main event, it might just be a thing based on the circumstances of the match, but it seemed like Alpha Academy were playing more face-ish tonight,
they were.
and
they were.
they like I said, they could go back to being full-on heel next week or whatever. But I really like that dynamic for them. I think Otis has always been a pretty likable, goofy, sympathetic babyface, and I think the crowd's missed having that side of Otis. And I know Gable has had some missed runs as babyface, but I think there's still a lot of potential there. So I don't know. Do you think there's a direction that they're going to head into, or we'll be back to status quo heel Alpha Academy next week?
When someone is pushed less than you want, or they're losing more than you think they should, one of the ways in pro wrestling to get them heated up and more relevant again is turning them, whether it's a face turn or a heel turn. And Gable and Otis are really talented. I know Jason Powell pushes. Gable should be pushed more. He's too talented, and he's being defined down. Is it too late, Javier, or could Gable and Otis both become a babyface tag team, or one of them turn face, and get more out of them at a higher level?
I would never say no. You can repackage people. I mean, we've seen wrestlers go, usually requires changing companies. But, Aldo Montoya went to be just incredible. So, so you could, rebuild and stuff. Probably a little bit harder in the same company, but I think that the average WWE fan is a lot more forgiving about that. And some of the hardcores are more like, well, it's the WWE. I mean, granted, this was more in Vince McMahon's time. This is WWE. They're not using them right, and then when they go somewhere else, we're still going to stick with them because you see them used right. I think people are going to be forgiving when they put the Hurt Business back together of Benjamin and Cedric, and I thought they looked, they gave them more than they gave them a good look at during the match. Plus you had the main event thing with Cedric where almost felt like he was retiring, and they were giving him a cheer for all the years of good work. So it looks like they're trying to change the perception of them a little bit, so they could be a serious team by putting them back together with Lashley. And you know what, you could buy that because they were a dominant force when they were together, and you could just sell it as when we came apart we didn't have what linked us together that made us stronger. So that's one way you can actually elevate a talent. What do you do with Otis and Gable? I think it's doable. I just don't know how. Whether you could do it with them together, maybe become a babyface tag team, in the, and then, and sort of follow almost the same path as Sami Zayn. Because, I mean, Sami Zayn is somebody who was also mired in that kind of situation where he was just essentially a goofy comedy act.
Yeah.
Who was wrestling.
Just neurotic and not to be taken seriously.
Yeah, and he wrestled this guy, Jackass, last year, and now he's like one of the, one of the, I think, top 3 or 4 to win the Rumble to challenge Roman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have callers here saying that, I hope that Sami Zayn is the one who dethrones him. I mean, that's, that you could recover. That's basically a long-winded way, Wade, of saying that, yes, you could recover.
Yes. Very good. William, how about what else?
More on the absences tonight. How do you think they handled the absence of Becky Lynch? Because I don't think they gave unless I missed something, I don't think they gave a reason as to why she was missing. And I don't think they even said if she was even in the arena or not. I know that from social media, I think she posted something about being, I think she was on set doing another episode of Young Rock or something. So that may be it. But just tonight it seemed like if you're watching, I don't know, the way they had Damage Control beat Mia Yim, you were kind of hoping or wanting Becky to come out and do something about it, have her back like Mia Yim had hers last week. And for them to not explain oh man, well, I think Becky would have liked to have been here, but she couldn't because due to, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't even do that. It just seemed like, maybe just Becky didn't feel like coming out or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it this weekend, how, important Becky Lynch could seem to Raw, and that it isn't quite there yet. And part of it would be being there every week. Part of it would be having good feuds. Part of it is just kind of the framing of her combined with what they give her to do and then her performance on the mic and in the ring. But missing a week like this, when I don't know, it does hurt some momentum. But then again, if you don't have a lot to do, then if you're a big star, as Roman has shown, being away sometimes can make coming back be a bigger deal. And this is more for the TV audience that watches every week rather than the ticket buying fans who, when they bought tickets were thinking they'd see more stars. Javier, your thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, I mean, and considering the fact that it was essentially right after a loss to Bayley, and Bayley playing out. I mean, she's the heel and she's playing out. She's afraid of coming back, without having somebody say, hey, she's not here because she has other commitments. At the very least, if you don't want to promote another show, that's fine. But she's not here, and she knows she's not here because she's got other stuff going on. Without them actually working her out as an injury kind of angle. So I think it was a little bit of a misstep in that respect. But yeah, I mean, her presence was definitely missed in the show. So how much could they be getting out of Becky that they're not, in terms of it's a show without a world champion on the men's side that is there, and it's an absentee championship. It got won by a SmackDown wrestler. And so, you have Austin Theory and Seth Rollins kind of heading up the men's side, and Kevin Owens, doing his thing. Is this an opening for Becky and WWE in general to amplify her and make her the man? First of all, do you think that'd be a good strategy? And second of all, how would you go about doing that? Obviously, being available would be one of the options, but is there something they could just be doing in terms of how they produce her and feature her and talk about her, or is that just not a good choice? They're doing good enough with her right now. Well, I think if in a different universe where I think you had a better women in better positions, I think you could have her be the standout number one wrestler. Granted, this is not good for Bianca Belair. So if they were to embark on a story with Bianca Belair maybe turning heel and then work something with her and Becky, I think that could basically be the story for Raw. Something along those lines, and something very personal with her. And because I mean the Bailey Becky angle is the top angle right now in the women's division, over the Belair Bliss story that's going on. So yes, you could build around it, but I don't think all the pieces are in place to have that be sustainable. Similar to Charlotte over on SmackDown. Who's Charlotte gonna be feuding with for the time being?
William, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of small things that they could do. I mean, even with something like tonight, it's a missed opportunity to, like they usually do with Roman Reigns, if he misses a week or two, they'll make a big deal out of how he'll be back next week or on whatever episode of SmackDown. That they'll like advertise it ahead of time and make it seem like a bigger deal. And yeah, I think there's some missed opportunities there in terms of how they, treat the star factor that Becky still has. And I think it's that, I don't know, since she returned, it just doesn't feel like maybe they don't want her to overshadow Bianca. They want her to be more like the 2B to her or whatever. And maybe that's why they hesitate a little in how they push her. But yeah, I think I agree with what you guys are saying.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to bring up, William?
Yeah, a final topic, and then I'll let you get to other callers and emailers. I've seen a lot of speculation as to who might be Uncle Howdy, and I think the person that I see most at the top of that list, who people most speculate about, is Bo Dallas. And yeah, how do you guys feel about that? Because the last time we saw him, he was doing the whole B-team thing, and I really had to think about that for a minute, because I was even struggling to remember what he was even doing before he got let go. And I don't know, I just feel like how many people would actually make the connection that Bo Dallas is Bray Wyatt's brother. I don't think they ever really acknowledged that on TV. And this is kind of a bit of an exaggeration maybe, but I feel like it'd almost be like, if R-Truth took a 2 or 3 year hiatus, and then all of a sudden he was, a character of that kind of caliber or darkness, like an Uncle Howdy. Or if Santino Marella happened to be Uncle Howdy, if they decided that he was going to be him. I just feel like he was never really taking all that seriously. So for him to come back as that, even if they want to play on the real life family bond between the two, or connection between the two of them, it just be kind of weird. And they really have to work on making it seem like a serious deal.
Javier, I'll throw to you for your thoughts on what William brought up and also what we saw tonight in that realm.
Yeah, I think it's very likely Bodal. I mean, it just the reveal has to be either someone that we're gonna say, oh, awesome, in terms of someone with some star power, or someone who has a personal issue with him, and what better personal issue than his real life brother. How you handle the Bo Dallas thing, you can do it. It requires, and they've been kind of masters of it, because I've mentioned a lot of times that the Fiend storyline was kind of, both touched upon real life and meta also. So you could, it'd be tough to thread that needle, where Bo can blame his, essentially what was his run at a low card position on his brother, and that's why he wants to get revenge. You could do that exactly how, I don't know, because without actually referring to oh, it's his fault because he's had management's ear and that's why he wasn't getting booked. So you don't want to go that meta, but I have faith that they'll come up with a good reason. But maybe you don't really need to if the transformation from B Team Bo Dallas is so complete that you're not going to necessarily start questioning and basically take it as, okay, so this is not Bo Dallas, this is Taylor Rotunda, is that his name?
I don't think so, but now I can't remember. Do you remember, William? Let me look it up here.
I'm not real sure.
It is Taylor. Yeah, Taylor Michael. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't think that. Yeah, good job.
So I mean, and obviously not necessarily you use something like similar that kind of thing, and kind of divest Bo Dallas from being Uncle Howdy kind of thing. Similar how like we you never referred to Isaac Yankem as Kane.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. I do hope someday we find out, who all has gotten the honor of playing Uncle Howdy these weeks. I assume they're passing the outfit around. I don't know that. I just know that they're not.
I mean, if it is, it's a possibility that it was him today because I heard reports that he was backstage.
Yeah, but they had been keeping quiet who was playing the part prior. So and it certainly doesn't have to be him playing the part as long as he doesn't look remarkably different or have obviously different movements week to week. Like if Vince McMahon came out as Uncle Howdy, we'd all pick up on it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Don't roll that out, people. Don't roll out that he ends up being Uncle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having flashbacks to the Greater Power.
Oh, yes. All right.
You, Bray.
William, anything else first?
No, that's all I had. Thanks for taking the call. Have a good one.
Cool, thanks. I don't know if everybody's watching the college championship game tonight or what, Javier, but we're low on calls, maybe just, low star power show or whatever. But that was, spoiler alert, that was a...
or maybe people are really sick and tired of me this week.
Quite the blowout. No, it's definitely not that. Definitely not that.
I'm being self-effacing, is that the...
Yeah, self-deprecating?
Self-deprecating, that's the one,
yeah. So give us a call if you're listening to us live here, 347-215-8558, 347-215-8558. And push 1 on your keypad if you want to be on the show. I'll jump to an email here on a topic that we're just talking about. If I can, my tab has gone awry. There we are. So Zach in Texas said, Becky Lynch being off filming meant Raw was already severely lacking. Alexa Bliss being dragged further back into the Bravers is just sad. Alexa deserves better than that. It may not even matter, though. Nothing that happened on Raw tonight may matter if Vince sees his creative control back. Based on information that came out over the weekend, Vince wanted to retake creative control from Hunter as part of his coup, and the only thing stopping him right now is a verbal agreement. We know we can't believe a word Vince says, even if his tongue were notarized. It's only a matter of time, then, before we're back to seeing 24/7 skits and 6 non-finishes of the show. I guess we better enjoy what's left of the Triple H era while we can. This kind of transitions from some of our topics here, main topics we've been talking about, Becky Lynch, and then lately the Alexa thing, but also Vince and Javier. I haven't gotten your latest take on things here. We ran a poll on pwtorch.com asking people what they thought, and it was not great in our poll results. I'm going to bring up the latest results here, but go ahead and tell me your kind of take on things right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wait and see and hold your breath and hope that he's being truthful and realize, and then wait until I'm definitely in the denial phase right now, Wade. So, definitely there. So. Best case scenario, he sells it really quick, and it's not to somebody who's going to keep him on board. That would be for me the best case scenario. And it. What's your take of him like really being interested in selling before the actual TV contracts come due? Because it seems to me that maybe not a lack of confidence of the actual TV deal going up.
I think the logic made sense to me, which is if we make a TV deal with an entity that isn't the entity buying us, that could hurt. That it would just be weird, if Disney bought them, but they struck a renewal deal with NBC Universal or whatever the example was. It makes sense that you wouldn't do that. So
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think much deeper than that. I don't think there's a lack of confidence they're going to get a great deal. I think they've been right and they've been wrong about the landscape of TV, and so I don't think they know for sure, and I mean it would make sense for them to be a little nervous, but I mean they're going to do just fine. I mean it's a bunch of super rich people trying to decide exactly how much richer they're going to get, and I just don't care that much about it. I mean it's at a scale where they're going to be in business no matter what happens. This isn't like other Jim Crockett Jr. and is he going to survive, or Bill Watts. It's like, come on. I mean, we can sit here and act like it's a big deal, but it makes no difference to wrestling fans. Ultimately, they're going to get a bunch of money, and some rich people are going to get richer, and it's going to be a matter of degree how much richer they get, and people getting all worked up about the business side of it. I mean, I get it. It's it's sort of like you're a fan of billionaires keeping score with how rich they're getting, but I don't get all that excited about it because it's not actually going to affect ultimately the product fans fee or the survival of WWE.
Well, with the exception, because there will be, it depends, because there is who buys it because of how they run their creative content. Is it going to be a company that is going to purchase a company that's been successful and they know what they're doing, or is it a company that's going to buy it and say, hey, they got something here, but we can make it better, and then they're going to fiddle and not really know what they're doing. So there is that concern depending on who, where it goes. So, I just don't know all the players necessarily involved. There are obviously some players I'm like, I'm not really too thrilled with this if this company is the one who buys it, but, Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to. Is there anything else you want to say with Zach's email? Like, is this beneath Alexa Bliss? Does she deserve better?
He's gonna have to take it up with her, considering the fact that the Dark Bliss character was her idea before the entire she got tied into the Bray Wyatt thing. That was something she wanted to do for a while. She's into this kind of character. She's into that is the type of character she wants to play, a kind of like evil Harley Quinn kind of deal. She had said on Twitter that and in interviews that it's what appeals to her, and it wasn't, and she was very happy when the opportunity to work with Bray Wyatt came about so that she could sink her teeth into that kind of character. So,
yeah.
And she had a great run as the goddess, and I think she had something good going on with the character that she was playing. It just things ended up going awry again because hey, we have no fans, so we could do real spooky magic tricks, and we're going to go set people on fire, and yada yada yada, and yeah.
Yep. All right. Up next, let's see here. There we are. Breyer from Council Grove, Kansas said, "I had a question about Corey Graves. What are your thoughts on his announcing during the tag team turmoil match? I know he's playing his part as a heel, but sometimes, especially like tonight in the closing moments, his announcing can be really over the top and obnoxious. Did Graves go too far, and I assume he's talking about Dominic, but did Graves go too far in his enthusiastic selling of the idea that he's just absolutely been toughened up by prison, and it almost becomes like not tongue-in-cheek and not even like playfully farcical, but too much? What do you think?"
I could see why. The thought did cross my mind where you wish someone would say, "Hey, Corey, lay off the gas a little bit," because for this time to really get it across to the people sitting in the cheap seats. Okay, I know that's kind of like the WWE, particularly under Vince McMahon, but it's the WWE thing. Let's make sure we hit something enough times so everyone really knows what's going on. Example in the Bliss thing, which is something they've done a few times in the Wyatt thing, which I think for me is one of the worst things they've done, is when Uncle Howdy comes out and they cut to her looking angry, they cut back to him, then they cut back to her, and then they cut back to him, and they cut back to her, and it goes back and forth a few times, and they let it they let it sit for too long, where it feels like, okay, so what are we going to do now? And that's happened a few times also on SmackDown with some of the reveals and stuff, where they leave the camera on. They should shut the camera off sooner and then move on to the next thing, because you don't want to just have the guy standing there, because then you're like, okay, so was something going to happen? And I think that's to, get, in this case with the Uncle Howdy thing, is to get her facial reaction that she's upset with the Uncle Howdy character for some reason, particularly since, in the Titantron, when they showed the Uncle Howdy, video, showed images of the playground and of her as the Dark Alexa character, and say, do you really think you're in control? Yeah. Meaning that her current version, her darkness now that she's saying, oh, I'm in control now, is something that he brought out of her, that he's in control of her, and she's angry about that, which makes me think that she's more likely going to, I was wondering where she would fall, whether allied with or against Bray. It looks like it's more, she's going to end up allied with Bray right now.
Yeah.
Or ultimately.
Yes. Yep. I thought her acting in standing on the announce desk had a wide range to it. There's times where I was buying it, and there's times where it felt like, this is when I exhale and move my arms out. So part of it is that she's got to find her voice and get comfortable being settled into a clear, I don't say hierarchy, but what the dynamic's going to be with her character and who she's aligned with. And I think then she'll blossom more, because as you said, she's into this. This is what she wants to do. But if she's not sure where she's going yet, or it's just sort of she's trying to be intentionally ambiguous or show confidence, but not enough that it overrides the mind games of Uncle Howdy, all that's going on, and I think it's a challenge for her.
Yeah, I think. 1 second. I think she started off a little bit weakly, and then I think she got stronger a little bit towards the end. But overall, which this was a stronger performance. I'm not talking about necessarily the content. Some people might not like the content, but in terms of her performance and her confidence, way stronger than what she had been doing before the stuff. Because she like Corey Graves said, she seemed lost when she was just essentially portraying herself, as opposed to and so now she actually came out and she's like, you can tell she was in a character. Maybe she hasn't found the character yet, because if you've ever watched a pilot movie, by the 5th episode, the people you saw in the pilot movie are completely different from the 5th episode, as they find their voice and they find the relations between them.
Totally.
And this felt to me like this is my first time putting on these clothes and seeing how it comes up. So that's why it didn't really strike me that much as it maybe struck you, but because I kind of expected that in terms of this is her saying, okay, this is what we're doing now.
Yep. All right, Wade from New Zealand emailed and said, hey, Wade and Javier, I'm sad to say I think I'm near the breaking point with Bayley. Her speaking skills have already left her, and now it feels like her wrestling skills are following in the same bad direction. I'm a fan of hers, so I'm sad about this. A change needs to be made, and soon. So I'll pause there in his email. Do you agree with that, Javier? I'm not super down on her. I'm not high on her. I'm just sort of accepting that this is what we're getting. It just feels kind of like generic obnoxious heel, and she's decent at it, but it's not the Bayley that we were, I think anticipating for a while returning. That's kind of where I am. How about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I do think that some of the stuff they're doing now is a little bit more interesting, because it was mentioned on commentary, so I was, and I'm like, oh, you know what, they might have a point with this, where it looks like what they're trying to tell is that Becky's kind of gotten into her head, because Becky said that you can't win without your goons helping you, and she feels kind of like the way that she's acting is kind of like that's affected her a little bit, and they're playing into that. So that at least has given you something, a little morsel for you to bite on. Which before it was just like her going through, specific emotions. And I think that when she's being challenged in that way is when she gets better. And I don't think she had been, for a while. So I'm curious what the next step in the Bayley Lynch feud goes, and what their next interaction is going to be like. I'm more interested than I would have been otherwise, just mainly because of that little nugget that they put in my head, the commentary put in my head.
Yeah. Okay. He says, I'm with Javier in the denial zone with Vince McMahon. I can't help but have a sense of impending doom. He also said, JBL, if someone doesn't understand the term channel changing heat, then just have them watch these JBL promos and they'll quickly learn. I just like sort of roll my eyes at him like saying snowflakes and woke, because he says it with like this, oh, I'm so funny, I'm so going to get under your skin with this. And it's like, no, it's just like these sad, tired, buzzwords that 5 years ago were so overused. Now the joke's on you because you think it stings or you think it's some sort of thing. And using it, on a Birmingham, Alabama audience, it's just like, I mean, there's blue cities and red states and all that, but it's like, save it for when there's like some sort of connection between the town you're in and how people perceive it. And so, yeah, and more, it's just more than that too. Baron Corbin and JBL have no chemistry. There's never been a convincing moment where Baron Corbin made me believe that he looks up to JBL for career advice, or that they spend any time talking outside of when the camera is on and they're out at the ring. So yeah, just a lot of things working against it. I'm with Wade on this one. It is, channel changing heat. I found JBL entertaining over the years. It's been a while. And this is not in that, in the category of good JBL eras.
Yeah, I mean, he used to be a caricature, and now he's a character of a character. So,
yeah.
And that was kind of like I'm kind of there. And the weird thing about the thing about like JBL and Corbin, it's almost like a movie where that the actors were never in the same room at the same time.
Yes, totally.
And that kind of is what it feels like. So, and not only at the same time, it was like, oh, what was the movie that they reshot? They reshot a movie like in a character their entire role because the person playing the character got wrapped up, I think, in the Me Too movement maybe, and they actually like refilmed all that character scenes and then sliced it into the movie. I think it might have been the Batista movie that Zack Snyder did. I think that might have been the one with the zombies. Where I mean, at least in that one, it actually kind of worked. It was okay, but it feels like that's what they did. It's like they took some scenes from one movie and they just slapped them in. It's odd. It's weird.
Yeah. He also says, I'm very much enjoying the growth of Austin Theory, Damian Priest, caveat in the ring, not on the mic, and Rhea Ripley. They're all becoming the Sami Zayns of Raw must-see. What do you think of Austin Theory, Javier, and what we saw tonight standing opposite of Seth, and him being, I mean, from a depth chart standpoint, he's not a mid-card, he's not a comedy guy, he's not a selfie guy. He's a top heel on Raw going into 2023.
Yeah, I mean, who would have called that, Wade?
Yeah, I know. You and I.
Yeah. But a quick pat of each other's back there. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to see. I mean, that's it's nice to see, and I like that segment. Seth Rollins is a big charisma, and he has presence, and he has the experience, and he has the time, and he didn't wilt. He didn't wilt towards that. I don't know if he's necessary. Do you think he's playing for the what chance?
I don't think anybody is, but I think sometimes you just, you sort of resign yourself. But I don't think anybody actually wants that.
Okay, because
what makes you think? What makes you think he was or is?
It's recurring, and I would think that he would swap, his cadence, and it almost kind of feels like when they start doing it, he kind of plays into it, so he could just say, shut it up, and because then, when the rest of the conversation between him and Seth went, there was a group who's trying to chant what you could kind of hear them in the background, who's trying to, those pricks. If you do this, you're a prick, and I'm watching my mouth because this, I would be using a lot stronger language in this, who basically just trying to say it to say it, even though you're not trying to fit into the cadence. And they started doing that, but so he did a little bit, and then he changed his cadence after that. So that was just why it feels like, because it always happens at least once in a show. And then you also had like the fact that he was involved with the Stone Cold stuff. Now it looks like, I mean, he's champ is here, man. He said the champ is here, and yeah.
Oh, totally. More every week. Every week that's his thing.
I'm like, I cannot wait. It's actually. It's kind of weird to say. I cannot wait to see confrontation between him and John Cena. That's just odd for me to say it.
All right. Also, if Montez keeps bulking up and Angelo keeps slimming down, those two will soon meet in the middle with body types. As a guy who's, typing up reports on them and trying to keep track of who's in the ring, and sometimes I'm, looking at my computer screen and not staring at the TV screen, I like, oh, there's Ford. Oh, no, wait, that's Dawkins. Like, they are harder to tell apart now. Montez, I mean, there was a stretch a year or two ago when we were talking about Montez being a future star, and it cooled off a little bit. He had the injury hiatus and all that. But, we see what has happened with Austin Theory is, and this isn't exactly Wade's question, but if Montez is Montez still showing signs to you, or did he ever, of being somebody who could be a rising star of 2023, like Austin Theory was of 2022, a rising star in that they get a push and it's effective and they look like they belong? And I mean, of course, singles, not tag, because he's already a star in the tag division.
Basically, you're saying, can he be a top star in 2003? Is that what you said?
A rising star, yeah.
Rising star.
Along the lines of Austin Theory in 2022, yeah.
You can. I mean, if you want to pull that trigger, you can. Otherwise, just they could be the next guys up after the Usos in the tag team. If you're going to keep them in that realm. If you he's one of the few wrestlers who's for reasons I check his Twitter. And there are a lot of people saying, when are you going to turn heel and leave Dawkins? So people, there are a lot of people who want to see him, strike out on his own. And I think, and Dawkins, not in a Vince McMahon WWE, but in a Triple H WWE, I think he also gets a shot too. I mean, I can see that happening, but I'd almost rather keep them together and then have them just sometimes go do on their, like they strike on their own and have just one person be their, their corner guy. I'd rather not see them necessarily break apart, and that way when they need to, work together, they can work together. But I'd like to see them also get involved in singles stuff, just not necessarily break them up, because I think they have good chemistry and they work well together.
Is Montez showing you top guy potential? I mean, are there not that you're willing to bet a lot on it, but are there a lot of positive signs that he could be a centerpiece pay-per-view main event act, or is the body of evidence just not quite there yet?
Some of them have great charisma. I mean, their characters are a little bit over the top, and if you're going to go to, if you're going to go in the route of the upper echelon, I think some of those things have to be toned back. And if they do end up breaking up and going on their own thing, that they'll likely become different characters. There'll probably be a much bigger demarcation between what they are now. Yeah. I could see him wearing a suit and that kind of thing, and and be more like closer to like a Bobby Lashley kind of style. Or even like a Seth Rollins, but without the cackling laugh. But something along those lines. I could see, I think he will have a bigger change. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's just I kind of like them together, and I kind of want them to have like one really good run, like a run where they hold the titles for like a year and are the guys that everybody tries to beat. Basically, what the Usos have been. I'd like for them to have the Uso position for a bit before, or the Uso / New Day position as the top tag team for a while before you move them on to different things. That's a personal choice.
Yeah. Seth Rollins is 36 years old. Montez Ford, 32. So, I just kind of like to track that, and a lot of that is bump card and how long they wrestlers want to wrestle. But it's kind of weird that in just a few months, like in May, he's going to be 37, and that's an age when people started talking about like Ric Flair being too old to main event, who's going to be next? It's like crazy when you think about that, that he's approaching that age, because it's just like the Shield being now at an age where Ric Flair was when people started going, well, who's going to be the next Ric Flair? When he was in his late 30s, That's where Seth is. That's where Roman and Moxley are. You start looking around for who the next people are going to be, and Montez Ford at age 32 is not Austin Theory. Like, you kind of want to go quickly. I'd be fine if they skipped a run of Street Profits being, the USO main event centerpiece tag team and just went with him if they felt he was ready and they felt that spot was there for him. It's not terrible if they do it, but you start looking around at NXT and you go, who can they bring in from there? You look at other tag team wrestlers. We talked about Chad Gable or Otis. Can they be reframed like you said Sammy has been, and maybe Dominic to a degree? Mostly Sammy was the example there. And even like Bronson Reed, like coming back. What do you think about him, Javier, and his upside, his potential?
Well, I mean, that's why I said selfish, Wade. Selfishly, I'd like to see it. Bronson Reed, which is a hard name for me to remember because I did not follow him as Bronson Reed, and I just got used to him as Jonah.
Sure. Oh, of course. Yeah, that's funny. That's really funny.
And it was actually kind of neat because commentary on the New Japan Dash actually talked about Jonah and Bronson Reed, mentioning that he's still part of the Mighty Don't Kneel. That just because he's in the WWE, they said just because he's in the WWE doesn't mean he left the group. Which I thought was like nice little nod. Interesting interaction there with The Miz. I was actually doing the math, and I'm like, he's actually a cheaper date than Dexter Lumis is. Consider the fact that he, obviously The Miz paid Jonah to win what he had paid Dexter Lumis. So that had to have been a better transaction for him, unless So I like the idea that of The Miz trying to cozy up to Jonah, and then Jonah. I got to go back to Bronson Reed. Got to get that in my head. Bronson Reed, and then basically Bronson Reed just saying that I'm if you want me there, you got to pay me money, and that's simple. And I'd like to see that someone who's just a mercenary, because I don't think we've seen something like that in the WWE in a while, have we?
No.
So someone who could be like, the APA, I think that's the last time I remember, that they would be called in for favors, and and someone who's a threat that could be thrown into good matches and be an actual threat to babyfaces. To babyfaces who in the middle of feuds, so you don't have to have the babyface wrestle the heel that he's wrestling, kind of thing. And then also like what we were talking about earlier, when like a Johnny Gargano who's injured can hire Jonah to take out Miz.
What is a Bronson Reed's upside? Like, I'll say it, best case scenario, Javier, for the next few years in WWE. Like, for people who aren't super familiar with him, and you've seen him as Jonah, people have seen his work in NXT. Paul Levesque is a fan. Let's say this man doesn't interfere with that. Where do you expect him to land in terms of a spot that he deserves, not just one he gets pushed to? What's a good fit for him over the next couple of years in WWE?
I think it'll likely be at first blush, like my gut instinct would probably be like around like in the same place where like Gunther is right now, like the IC US title belt, occasionally going to the main wrestling for the championship like Sheamus is right now. I know he's had a run in as champion too, but I like that level. Like I don't think he's gonna be like one of the perennial champions, but you'll see him in Elimination Chamber. That's one of those guys, who's gonna be a threat in whenever you have like one of these matches where you have to have 6 people in, and he's like the big threat that is it can he win? Something like maybe like a Bobby Lashley kind of scenario.
All right, Wade from New Zealand says question. Do you have any ideas why when someone challenges Roman, they're challenging for the Unified Championship? But when someone is challenging the Usos, it's for a show-specific title. The commentary team went out of their way to hammer home that the winners of the Turmoil match were going to challenge for the Raw titles. Thanks for your time, gentlemen. Javier.
Interesting. I actually did not pick up on that.
I didn't either. And when I'm insecure because he's like, the announcers hammered it home, and I don't know what I was doing when they were hammering it home.
Yeah, I mean,
I haven't noticed that before, by the way.
I mean, the thought did cross my mind in respect that there's no SmackDown that Sheamus and the new Brawling Brutes weren't involved. Sheamus and McIntyre. Are there any other SmackDown? Viking Raiders. Lotharios. No one for SmackDown was involved. So I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. That's just the just the WWE. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of, yeah. I mean, it might be laying the groundwork that the winner of, which I think is a good possibility, is the winner of the Rumble only gets to choose one of the titles that Roman has.
Yes. I think that's the best theory that I can't come up with a better theory than that. What else was I going to bring up just a second ago, and now I can't remember. Was there anything else in your notes on Raw that you want to bring up?
Talk about the Bliss thing. I mean, I have 3 question marks on this, so I don't have an idea what they're going to do with this, but they're revisiting the Ziggler Mustafa Ali thing.
Yes.
This is not going to. I'm hoping this is not a Mustafa Ali heel turn, right?
I mean,
it looks like it's painted.
I've been an advocate for Mustafa Ali getting a push. I have not been impressed with his acting and mic work backstage throughout this. I don't think it's been good. I don't think this is a good fit for him. It could be that he doesn't know what his direction is, or it could be he's intending to come across sort of whiny or just, I don't know, needy. But, I think Ziggler was supposed to be the heel here, picking his singles match over Ali. But I don't think Ali came across great just being like, well, what about us? It's like, well, you're not best pals, and he screwed you over before. Why are you so desperate to team with him now? Go find a partner. I don't think he's been written well, but I don't think he's acting well. And I can't rule out that they're heading towards a heel turn, because he's not being booked in a super sympathetic way. But my guess would be they're not, and it's unintentional.
Yeah, and it also feels like we're missing pieces of the storyline too, because interestingly, in like the way that they told it, that they actually backfilled it in the conversation that we're having, like as an exposition dump. That we talked about this earlier, and I understand that why you did what you did, and so now we're friendly, but now you're screwing me. It feels like there was like a chapter that we missed, and we just filled in exposition. So and just this, and that's the thing. It's just like it's weird because it's that thing of turning back and forth. I think it's bad for particularly for Ali right now to continuously change it back and forth. And I'm also not. And if there is a heel turn either way, I'm not really excited for Dolph Ziggler versus Ali either.
Nobody. It's not that it'd be a bad match, but it doesn't feel the least bit relevant. And that was actually the question I was going to ask you. Did Ziggler last too long with Solo Sikoa? Is Solo taking too long to beat his opponents, or was 11 minutes commercial break in the middle about right? I think they're at risk of hurting Solo's mystique, but I think they're just feeling like he's got to go out there and beat some people who count, but not bury them. And so I understand the logic of it. Plus, it's just have TV time to fill. And sometimes matches are longer because I think they're just trying to fill TV time. What do you think?
Well, I mean, with Ziggler, it's fine because Ziggler is a veteran and he's young. So I would rather the problem is that they just essentially went out there and had a WWE style match without working the story. It felt like they could have worked more of the story, that it was his not immaturity in terms of like not being mature, like how they were portraying Austin Theory for a while, but his lack of experience. That cost him. And there was one spot, which was when he had him up for the Samoan drop, and then Ziggler just hit this zigzag, because he took too long, and that was like the veteran, the KG veteran trying to win here. So I was kind of fine with that. I mean, you see that in New Japan all the time because of they pay more attention to that. I kind of wish they had emphasized that a little bit more, particularly in commentary. Outside of the platitude that, oh, he's a former WWE champion, kind of stuff that they usually do. And going back to the one that he had with Ezekiel's brother, Elias. That one, again, the same thing. That one I think would have been fine being more 50-50. had it been more, because since it was a weapons match, had the weapons been more of a focus early on, so to give Elias an unfair advantage, so to give, have him be on top and force, Sikoa, I mean, I probably would have had him not use weapons at all in that match and still beat him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At the end, have him get beat up with the weapons, but he never touches the weapons, and then he ends up beating him. And then in this one, similar one. So yeah, I'm fine that he's taking a long time, because you're trying to not say that he's a killer, because if you do, then you run the risk of having people expect him to be up against Roman too soon. And why would Roman have someone this crazy, nuts, in his inner circle? That would be someone he'd start doubting. And I don't think you want to do that right now when you're dealing with, other stuff, and you don't want to start playing with that idea yet. So in this case, he's like, he is still a rookie. He has all these upsides, and, he's going to get there. So I'm kind of fine with that. Unless your goal is to, he's going to be the champion next year, the person to dethrone Roman Reigns. If that was the plan, then yeah, this is completely not.
Yeah. What do you think of the job Kevin Patrick is doing? Where are you on this?
Yeah. I don't hate him. Mm-hmm. But he has. I would have to actually be watching it so I could actually point it out, but there's something he does on commentator where he'll say a word and like he'll emphasize it, but it'll sound phony, almost like if you're watching, like almost if you listen to the commentary on the actual video game, and he's just like in a sound booth recording his lines, as opposed to actually really reacting. Right.
That's a common problem.
Thing. Yeah. So it and that was like my problem, like, because I had stopped watching wrestling for a while, and a couple things brought me back. It was World Culture and some other stuff. But one of the other things was I for a lark downloaded the WWE 2K game and was listening to the commentary. And then when I got back to WWE, I was like, man, the commentary is kind of stilted and kind of like, because it's programs like, there'll be a moment where they'll tell you something about the person's life history to make it seem like it's real, and then like I started listening to Cole and it sounded just the same, and I'm like, oh my god, what's going on here? It's got a lot better.
That's creepy. Yeah.
It's got a lot better. So and Cole's gotten a lot better where it feels more a lot more natural, and it doesn't feel like every now and then they'll press a button and it goes, now I got to say this. The Kevin Patrick kind of feels like he's on that. So, again, not horrible. Like, I know he's a robot, but I think Tom Phillips was of the people, like, I like him the best.
The robots.
And granted, it's because if, I'm assuming that you would have like the NXT Tom Phillips, not the WWE Tom Phillips, who was, having Vince yelling in his ear.
Right, yeah.
So, the NXT Tom Phillips with Corey Graves, where they had like a nouveau gorilla, Bobby Heenan kind of relationship back and forth, which I really enjoyed, because I mean it wasn't like they were pastiche copies of them, but they kind of had the same, like, would you stop that?
Yes.
And he would hit him back. I love that in NXT, and I think that was one of my favorite things that got me into NXT at the time. Not that I want to see Tom Hannafan leaving, which is Tom Phillips, leaving Impact, because I've been he's made commentary there a lot more tolerable.
Yes. All right. My final topic, unless you have more, is just the Bobby Lashley MVP segment. I think we alluded to it in passing that Lashley was back when we were talking about Star Power. Where do you think this is going, and how do you think they've handled it so far?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to be a reunion between a reunion of the Hurt Business. I mean, they could always pull a swerve and it be, but I trusting not, because there's been a lot of, buzz about Hurt Business getting back together. Particularly, and then with, like I mentioned, Shelton Benjamin and in his moment in main event, which got some play. I mean, it was mentioned by the on-site correspondent, I think, mentioned it, right?
Yes.
And then after that, I saw it in social media and in articles talking about that, which tells me that word went out to get this out that Shelton Benjamin is people are cheering Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah.
Cedric Alexander, all you need to do is give him a good let him go out there and wrestle, and people are gonna fall in love with him because I've loved his matches. To he's like on par with me and with Gable.
But don't let him talk.
Yeah, but if you're in a faction with 3 people with MVP, you don't really need to say other than grunt here and there. I was gonna say you don't have to say more than a few words, but I think in this just shake your head, Cedric. But yeah, so I mean, I'm thinking that they're going to get together. There's likely going to be some sort of something that's going to trigger this. I DM'd you when I saw the lineup. I'm like, hey, there's a good shot that they might win.
Yes, yeah,
because
I was not nodding along. I didn't think so.
Well, I mean, I thought there was an off chance because I thought that if they go up against the Bloodline and then interference happens and then Lashley makes the save, being the impetus for Lashley to get together with them, and ultimately accepting them. I thought that might have ended up being what they would have done. It wasn't. So I'm assuming they're going to get together in a different sort of way. And I did like the fact that MVP, you talked about their history, so they didn't ignore it.
Yeah. Yep. I thought that was handled well. There was actually some human nuance to it, how people would react in that situation.
Exactly. And then how Lashley's not convinced and he and MVP left the door open.
Yep.
So I like that. I mean, there's likely going to be something that's going to happen that either Cedric and Shelton either comes to Lashley's aid or Lashley ends up coming to the aid of the other two. So something's likely going to happen. I just don't know right now how it's going to play off. Or maybe this all happens behind closed doors and we find out that they're together at the Rumble and they start working together as a 3-unit team during the Rumble. So.
All right, very good. Javier, thank you. Been fun talking around tonight.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. One of the the caller emails mentioned the Mia Yim Meacham thing.
Yeah.
And 2 things, like there was the Rhea Ripley. Well, actually more than 2 things. You have Emma. You had Candice LeRae. I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting somebody else. People and Mia Yim / Meacham who've come in and they've lost quite a bit, and it seems like they're I'm guessing at this point their position is just to be the person to get other people over.
Yeah. Yep.
That seems like what their role is, because I mean, particularly surprised with Candice LeRae has been has not been having a good time with her win-loss records over on the main roster.
Well, we're going to continue to hear more about Vince McMahon's influence or lack thereof on creative. And we're going to continue to look at, what happened with LA Knight. Just whatever. There's, people who are gone. We're going to think, oh, they're gone because Vince McMahon is down on them, or Paul Levesque's trying to hide them for now. So Vince doesn't know they're getting a push. But LA Knight was like that first guy who Vince didn't get. He's done with the Maximum Male models, and then Vince resigns. The next thing you know, LA Knight gets rebranded, recast, and pushed. So we'll see how that plays out, and a variety of other people who have shown up since Vince wasn't around. If he appears on TV again, does he reach into a trash can and pull out the 24/7 title? Even though it didn't land in there. So yeah. Anyway. Sorry, I shouldn't end on that note because we are all in denial.
And maybe like Nikki Cross will never be seen again, even though we've been seeing her here and there.
Yeah, she was on a reflection tonight.
Yeah, she's been getting little cameos.
I teased this earlier, and didn't get to it. In the poll, how do you feel about Vince McMahon returning himself to power? And 74% very negative, 13% somewhat negative. So you're at 87% thumbs down, 6% are neutral, 2% somewhat positive, 5% very positive. So not good.
So you're saying that 5% of the Torch voters are liars?
I mean, honestly, there probably are genuinely 1 out of 20 WWE fans who like it. Oh, I know you are, but I'm just saying it's not like nobody thinks this is good. But, yeah, someone said I put somewhat negative. Good for the overall business, but stay out of booking and keep the headset off. Well, good luck with that.
I almost never ever vote on one of the extremes on one of these things, and I would vote for the very negative for me, because best case scenario is the rich billionaires do not. They play by different rules, so they might not be paying. They're not going to. They're likely doing everything that Vince McMahon did, so they don't care. If they're not paying attention and they believe in the legend of Vince McMahon, that's the only value that I can see in selling is the legend of Vince McMahon, or people who already had a prior experience with Vince McMahon, like say they sell to the Saudis, that kind of thing. That's the only plus side I see in terms of like why you someone on the street would want him on there. Outside of that, I think everything else is too much of a headache, and I'm waiting. I'm more dreading like the more leaks and stuff that are going to come out, because the people, unless they've given up, I'm pretty sure they're going to go after Vince McMahon hard and heavy.
Yes. Oh, it's going to be an interesting story. I'm
interesting, as in the proverb, "May you live in interesting time."
Yeah, exactly. Yes. All right, Javier. Thanks.
Thanks for having me on, Wade.
Absolutely.
Been a busy week so I've been all over the place. If you haven't had enough of me, I was on with Greg Parks, where we talked in depth on the Vince McMahon thing. Went over the New Japan Wrestle Kingdom Night 1 show, and a little, I touched on a little bit on the New Year's Dash show and some of the stuff that's happening in the future. And we also gave a preview for Impact. I was rather impressed with myself, considering the fact I have not seen any Impact since December, and I kind of knew the story for all the for most of the card, with the exception of like the tag team, but I could figure that one because it's a 4-way.
It's not like you just said June. I mean, it was just last month.
Yeah, well, I mean, early last month.
But still. Yeah.
And granted, they also had, I think, what's it called? The throwback show that they do, which
right.
I love. Guilty pleasure of mine. So and then usually they take the next week off, so it hasn't been that much, but I was kind of like, oh look, I kind of knew. I hadn't seen the Bully Ray heel turn yet, or not really. It turns out he was always lying, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Reveal that he was, he's still Bully Ray.
Yep. All right. Awesome. Thanks everybody for listening, and keep spreading the word about the show, and we'll talk to you next time.
Don't be surprised if you don't hear from me for the rest of the week, because my voice is going to be gone by the end of the day. Have a good one.
Well, we'll give you some things to type instead then.
Have a good night.
Take care. All right, we're not done yet, because coming up next is the Wade Keller Hotline, previously VIP exclusive from 5 years ago this week, with my start-to-finish rundown of Raw. This is the January 8th, 2018 episode. It included a big Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar, Kane stunt angle, also Balor Club versus Champions Club, the return of Miz, Samoa Joe hinted at a John Cena feud, and much more. I do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night for VIP members, reviewing Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown start to finish. So if you're not investing time to watch all these shows all the time, but you want to keep up on what's going on, you can, of course, read our reports on pwtorch.com. But you can also listen to my start-to-finish rundown with analysis of the show, but a real chronological, thorough rundown of all the key happenings as a VIP member on our VIP podcast feed. So another reason to go VIP. If you see the shows, it's still worth listening, because I had a lot of analysis. But if you're missing the shows, it's a good setup or primer for our post shows that are more analysis-based. pwtorch.com/govip. All right, so let's get to it. This, again, is the Wade Keller Hotline, previously VIP exclusive from 5 years ago this week, covering Raw. This is PW Torch VIP editor Wade Keller with the Wade Keller hotline for Monday, January 8th, 2016, the post-Raw edition of the program. Thank you for joining me, and let's go to it. Let's go through Raw chronologically. They were in Memphis, Tennessee tonight. They opened with a video package on the Roman Reigns Samoa Joe IC title match. Then Roman Reigns came out to his music, to his usual eruption of a mix of boos and cheers. The announcers began gushing about Roman Reigns being a fighting champion. Booker said, "That's a real man now, dog, and that's what I'm talking about with Roman Reigns." Cole said, or talked about how if there were any doubts about Joe being a main event player last week, he erased them. And Booker then said, "I never had any doubts." Reigns then entered the ring and just stood there after his music stopped, soaking up scattered cheers and boos. It's almost like he wanted more of a reaction one way or the other, because it was just sort of kind of quiet. He was waiting. I mean, in WWE, guys do this. They'll kind of wait for something to kind of gain steam. But when it doesn't, I think it kind of makes him look bad. He said it seems Joe would be ready for him after all the talk and hype, because last week when it was time to put up or shut up, Joe got silenced. He said it's not that he's better than Joe. It's that he was fighting for a purpose. My brother, Dean Ambrose. He said he has a message for anyone in the back. If you mess with any members of the Shield, you mess with all of us. Then he was interrupted by Jason Jordan. Jordan walked out with his WWE Raw Tag Team title belt proudly around his waist. He had an intentionally obnoxious swagger and smile. The announcer said Jordan is showing signs of being cocky. Booker said he has a chip on both shoulders and could maybe use an attitude adjustment. Is that a hint of Cena versus Jordan at WrestleMania? No, we'll come to that later. Jordan entered the ring and said when he watched his match last week with Joe, he got goosebumps. He said for the first time in his life, he felt like he was part of something meaningful. Guys in the crowd tried to start a "you both suck" chant, but it didn't last long. Roman kind of shot them a look, which was kind of funny. Jordan said, "It's just like you said. When someone messes with us, it messes with all of us." He said on behalf of his partner, Seth Rollins, I love that, on behalf of my partner, Seth Rollins, "This is your yard, baby. This is your yard." He extended his fist for a fist bump, and Roman looked down at it incredulously, like, "You expect me to do a fist bump with you?" So then Seth's music played. As he walked to the ring, he told Jordan that he appreciates what he's trying to do, but he still has a lot to learn. He said his lesson about teamwork last week worked out well, but this week they have to work on his timing. "I know you mean well, but you're kind of stepping on Roman's moment." Jordan said this is everyone's moment. He said Reigns took care of Joe for them, and he and Seth took care of the bar. They all have belts now, and we run this show. Reigns shook his head and said, "Enough of this we stuff." He said he is the guy. Jordan asked who's better than them. "We're not quite the Shield, but you have to admit we're pretty good." He kept smiling obnoxiously. He said they might be the most dominant three-man group in all of WWE. Reigns looked at Seth as if to say it was time to rein in this partner of his. Then suddenly out walked Finn Balor, Carl Anderson, and Luke Gallows. What an amazing coincidence that when Jordan said, "Who's better than us?" that the Balor Club were just waiting right there to walk out. Anyway, Balor said he's been running with Anderson and Gallows for 10 years before he knew Kurt Angle was his dad. Anderson laughed and did the too sweet gesture. Anderson said if you go to WWE Network, there's a special about their history together. Gallows said when Balor came to WWE, they decided to stand alone. He said they won the Raw Tag Team Championships while Balor made history by winning the first Universal Championship. Anderson said as they did their own things, eventually they knew the three of them would come together and take this place over. So they entered the ring and stood across from Seth, Jordan, and Reigns. Balor said 2018 is the year of Balor Club. Jordan said he's part of the Champions Club. The crowd booed as Seth and Reigns hung their heads in embarrassment at Jordan trying to declare a new team name for them. Anderson asked if that's a new cute version of the Shield. Balor said, "Hey, I don't see the lunatic fringe, but we do see the architect, the big dog," and then pause for drama, "the nerd." Jordan didn't like that and lashed out with a slap at Gallows. Reigns then shoved Jordan back harshly, and Seth stepped between them to try to calm everybody down, at which point Kurt Angle walked out. He said they already have a great show planned tonight with Brock and the return of The Miz, but he might just have found his main event. He said he's not sure who to pick between the two teams to win, but he wants to see it happen. He asked the crowd if they want to see those two trios in a six-man tag match tonight, and there were some cheers. Angle's music played to close the segment, and the fans chanted, "You suck," and Graves said this will be off the chain. I'm really enjoying the dynamic between Seth, Reigns, and Jordan. Jordan is tremendous in this role so far, and Reigns is playing off of him in a way that's working for Reigns. It's one of the first situations WWE has placed Reigns in where he can play off of someone who fans can't get themselves to cheer just to spite Reigns. They did a nice job setting up the Balor Club reunion with references to their history. I'm not sure Anderson and Gallows have the credibility to seem to be two-thirds of a top-tier act, but there's an obvious chemistry and connection and new confidence with them when they're with Balor, and I think they can build on that. Considering how underutilized Anderson and Gallows have been, this could be a good boost for them and a better use of Balor, too, than what we've seen in recent weeks. Cole plugged that Lesnar will respond to what transpired with Kane last week. Graves plugged Miz TV. He said for 6 weeks he's been traveling the globe and making movies, but they'll catch up with him tonight. Then it was time after the commercial break for Absolution. Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville with Paige in their corner versus Bayley and Sasha Banks with Mickie James in their corner. Cole said the 30-woman Rumble is now half filled with 15 announced participants. They showed a picture of all of them on the screen. Graves said alliances will be tested in the Rumble. Paige wondered what would happen if it came down to Paige and Mandy, since Paige is the reason Mandy is even there. Graves said they'll stab each other to get ahead. Cole talked about Booker and Paige helping train Mandy and Sonya when she was part of Tough Enough a couple years ago. Cole said the first winner of the Women's Rumble will be remembered just as everyone remembers Hacksaw Duggan won the first Men's Rumble. And they cut to an early break. Back from the break, Booker said Sonya takes this thing very seriously. He said from day one on Tough Enough, she'd stay late for class. Mandy eventually got caught in the bank statement and tapped out. Cole said Absolution dominated before losing. Then, so it went about 11 minutes. Commercial then aired for SmackDown, hyping the tension between Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan, and they asked, what happens next? That is quite the hook. After the break, actually it kind of is. After the break, a vignette aired hyping Raw's 25th anniversary special in 2 weeks, featuring a clip of Steve Austin attacking Vince McMahon in his hospital bed. Cole laughed on cue as they returned from the promo spot, and they panned the crowd in Memphis. And then they went to the announcers on camera, who said they can't wait to see which legends show up in 2 weeks. Graves said he expects the Dudleys. Cole said, yeah, and JBL and Ron Simmons too. Then they commented on last week's angle with Kane and Lesnar. Graves said they've never before seen Kane manhandle Lesnar. Cole hyped that Lesnar would be out to respond later. Then they talked about what happened last week with Goldust, joining Cedric Alexander in a tag match when Enzo was out sick. He said their win last week built momentum for Cedric's Cruiserweight Championship match tonight. Then backstage, Goldust gave Cedric a pep talk in the locker room with a quote from Rocky 1. He used the line from his trainer, played by Burgess Meredith, I want you to eat lightning and crap thunder. Then he said that sounds uncomfortable, so he's not so sure about that. Cedric said he appreciates the pep talk, but he doesn't need it. He said he's been dreaming of this opportunity since he was 5 years old to become a WWE champion. He said some people laughed at him. Goldust said, I can relate to being laughed at. He said one thing stands between him and his dreams, and it's not Enzo or the Zo Train, but it's him. You are in control. He said, or Goldust went back into Rocky trainer mode, but kind of coughed like he was having trouble doing the gravelly Burgess Meredith voice, and that ended it. So then they went to the announcers on camera, who talked about next week's debut of Mixed Match Challenge on Facebook Watch. They showed Dustin Rhodes putting on his face paint backstage when suddenly Alicia Fox surprised him with the revelation that she is his partner. She took a selfie with him. He seemed okay with it. Booker said he sees a lot of good chemistry there. Graves said Jimmy Uso and Naomi are a real-life couple who are teaming, and now Rusev and his wife Lana are on the same team. As Matt Hardy came out to his new entrance music, Cole said he's not sure what to say about Matt. Graves told Cole to just open his eyes and his mind and enjoy. Booker said, there comes a time in every man's life where the switch can just flip. After the break, an Inside interview aired with Matt Hardy discussing his entrance into the Royal Rumble, declaring that he will win and march to WrestleMania to become the champion of the multiverse. So instead of the broken Matt universe, it's the multiverse. So Woken Matt Hardy took on Kurt Hawkins. Cole said Hawkins is 0-152 in his last 152 matches, but is undefeated so far in 2018. So there is that. Matt bit Hawkins' hand, but then he blocked the ref from seeing it. Booker said he's been in the ring with Matt Hardy, and Graves said, not this Matt Hardy. And Booker agreed, saying he doesn't even recognize him. Hardy did win with a familiar move, the side effect, and won about 2 minutes. After the match, the lights went out and then came back on with Bray Wyatt standing in the ring. They stared at each other. Matt laughed. Bray tried to keep a straight face. Bray laughed. Hardy laughed back. Bray got crazy-eyed and laughed back. This went on for a while. Matt chattered his teeth. Bray stepped up an inch away from his face and then backed away. Whole thing was strange, but it's good to see them share the same ring. It got uncomfortable and weird, which is what they're going for. I'm still hoping they have more layers planned for Hardy, and he's not just a one-note mid-card act who laughs funny and chatters his teeth. I think there's possibilities with him and Bray, and with the multiverse expanding over time with various characters being introduced. But I am okay with a slow unveiling. I am hopeful, not pessimistic. I think they have more planned, and it'll come slowly, and we just have to be patient. That's what I'm telling myself. The announcer's hype Miz TV was up next. Graves said it's been a long seemingly six, and let me try that again. Graves said it's been 6 long, seemingly endless weeks since Miz was around. All right, we move in hour number 2 after the break with Elias singing or playing guitar. And he introduced himself and said he complimented his performance. He said, wasn't that good? He said that he's traveled a lot of roads, but one truth remains. That WWE stands for, and he paused, and the crowd said it with him, walk with Elias. And he said, now you're starting to get it. He asked for silence because this one came from the heart. And he's saying it's January 8th, Elvis Presley's birthday. The crowd booed. He's the king, and Graceland's only 6 miles away. Did Jailhouse rock? And all shook up. He said it's a cold January night, and he thinks, why should I even care? More boos. And then he said, because there's a star on the way who's taking over the entertainment biz, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome The Miz. And then out came The Miz with Miz Taraj and Maurice. Graves said he has a source in Hollywood who said Miz won a Golden Globe last night, but he gave it to James Franco to help Franco with his self-esteem. Fans actually chanted welcome back at the heel Miz character. Curtis and Bo smiled. Miz asked if they missed him. The Marine 6 has wrapped and the USO Holiday Tour is finished, and The Miz is back on Monday Night Raw, he said. He said when he was gone, he wasn't forgotten. He said he wasn't forgotten because he is the glue that holds Raw together and because of Curtis and Bo. He said they turned their careers around in 2017 after sitting under his learning tree. He said that they are the living embodiment of a New Year's resolution gone right. Curtis said every day was Mizmas this holiday season. He thanked him and shook his hand. Bo said having Miz's wisdom in his life was like winning the Mizzies every day. He started a thank you Miz chant. Bo presented Miz with a framed picture of Miz. Miz wasn't moved by that. Bo said, it's going to be tough to sleep without that tonight, which was a funny line. Curtis took off his sports coat and said it's for Miz, pretending that the coat he was wearing was an intended gift as opposed to, oh crap, Bo got him a gift, now I better give him a gift. Bo then tried to one-up him by giving him his watch. Curtis offered him his shoes. Bo stepped in. Miz raised his arm and told him to be quiet and sit down. Miz talked about elevating SmackDown, Raw, Bo, and Curtis last year. Quite the year for Miz. He bragged that he is Rolling Stone's Superstar of the Year. He said he hasn't forgotten what happened 2 months ago after Raw went off the air when the Shield attacked him on the stage and powerbombed him through the announce table. Miz said that was an indignity for someone who has done so much for WWE as he has. He said he has allowed Roman Reigns to borrow his IC championship because when he filmed a movie, he wanted the championship to be represented week after week after week. He said, as everyone has found out, the title doesn't make a champion, the champion makes the title. And Daddy's home, Miz declared. He said in 2018 he will celebrate the birth of his daughter and become the longest reigning single greatest WWE IC champion of all time. He compared himself to Ultimate Warrior Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, saying that when children of this generation grow up, they'll think of him. This time, I will be the one and only person they think of with that title. He said he hopes Reigns has enjoyed the time with the title he has allowed him, but he's coming to take his title back. Cole said the big dog will be ready for the awesome one. Every time Cole says the big dog instead of Roman Reigns, it's so dorky. They got to have Cole stop saying that. Let other people say it. But Cole can really sabotage that being a cool thing when he says it. And it just sounds too corporate. It sounds too prescribed. Graves said he wants to hurry up and have another son so maybe he can marry into the Miz family. And Cole said that Corey Graves is insane. Miz has come a long way. He carries himself with more confidence as time progresses. Curtis and Bo were funny, trying to one-up each other, kissing up to him. I think this was a good setup for Reigns versus Miz. So then backstage, Anderson and Gallows were chatting when Balor said that was enough reminiscing because it's time to make new memories. Anderson listed some New Japan wrestlers, but said it'll be the same story with Reigns, Seth, and that little nerdski, Jason Jordan. Balor said the situation may be different, but the tactics remain the same. Gallows told Anderson to stay away from Saigon fries. Anderson said he has a smoking hot Asian wife. Balor said they have a real opportunity to make 2018 the year of Balor Club. Then came the two sweet hand gestures. Everyone here seems more at ease playing off each other. Balor comes across as a leader, playing off of Gallows and Anderson, being more mischievous and perhaps unfocused. The downside is there's just something about the dopey grin that Balor is wearing all the time now. I don't know if he's thinking about his future merchandise checks or he's just happy to be back with them, or if he's playing it up intentionally because it's to set up a heel turn. I don't know. If it's not to set up a heel turn, if it's not intentional, he's probably toned down to the wide-eyed dopey grin that he's just wearing. And it's like natural because he does it on photos for social media too, which I was critical of last week, and now he's doing it on TV. The announcers hyped Lesnar and the Cruiserweight title match, all upcoming. After the break, a commercial aired for Corey Graves' interview with Enzo on Straight to the Source, which apparently didn't end well as Enzo walked out on the interview after calling Corey terrible at what he does. Graves said if you ever wondered if Enzo is as detestable as he seems, he can assure everyone he is. Enzo made his ring entrance first. He did some mic work saying when he was sick, he thought he must be hallucinating when he saw Goldust teaming with Cedric. He said he's beginning 2018 the same way he ended 2017, as Cruiserweight Champion of the world. Enzo took on Cedric next, Cruiserweight title on the line. The match began with Enzo ducking between the ropes to stall. Cedric gave him a right. The ref scolded him because he was in the ropes. Enzo dropped and then bailed out to ringside. Enzo yelled that Cedric doesn't even deserve to be in the ring with him. Cedric chased him back into the ring as Cole said Cedric earned this match. They showed Nia Jax watching on a monitor sideways backstage. Enzo scurried to the floor again. Cedric pulled him back to the ring apron, but Enzo shoved him hard off the top rope. With Cedric wincing in pain, they cut to a break. Back from the break, Enzo had Cedric in a side headlock. They showed Nia Jax watching again. Cole said Goldust has declared Cedric money. Cedric came back with a drop kick and a spinning elbow. Enzo staggered. Cedric landed a handspring roundhouse kick to Enzo and scored a near fall. Enzo came up bleeding from his forehead after the kick. Cedric kicked Enzo in the face again. Cedric clotheslined Enzo over the top rope. Enzo rolled to the floor. Cole said Enzo's face is a mess. Cedric flipped dove onto Enzo, and Enzo grabbed his ankle in pain. When a trainer came over, Enzo pushed his towel away as he went to wipe away his blood. Cedric returned to the ring to beat the 10 count, but Enzo didn't. They showed Jax looking concerned backstage. Enzo struggled to stand and then collapsed again. So the winner, by countout, Cedric, so Enzo retained the Cruiserweight title. After the break, they showed the end of the Cruiserweight title match again, and then they went to the trainer's room where a medic said they'll need to take x-rays and possibly an MRI of Enzo's damaged ankle. A concerned Nia Jax walked in to check on him. Enzo acted worried and began crying in pain. They went to Kurt Angle on the phone with someone saying he thinks even though she hasn't been in the ring in years, the Women's Royal Rumble would be a great opportunity for her given her accomplishments. I think this is a good use of the eavesdrop on a phone call way to introduce a backstage segment because you can imagine, the director saying, hey, Kurt's talking to somebody on the phone and it's newsworthy. So basically they're promising fans there'll be surprises in the Rumble who aren't currently on the roster. I think everybody kind of expected that, but this is a good way to reinforce that. So then in walked Sheamus and Cesaro. Sheamus complained that Angle put Jordan in a 6-man tag match to keep his son away from them. They sniffed and said it smells like favoritism. Then they asked for their rematch. Angle said they'll have that opportunity at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Sheamus said that's great news, but he asked about tonight. Angle told them to go to the ring and he'll find them competition. And they left, and then in walked The Miz. He asked if he has any idea who he is talking to. He said the USA Network executives were hanging on his every word earlier when he announced his new unscripted series. He said that he and his wife are the stars and the executive producers. He asked Angle if Angle knows how to run a show, because he says, I sure do. And he said he can prove it by giving him his deserved rematch. He said he wants it at the 25th anniversary of Monday Night Raw in 2 weeks. Angle said that's not a bad idea. Angle recoiled when Miz tried to pat him on the shoulder to thank him. They went to the announcers who reacted. Then they shifted to the mixed match challenge hype. They showed Miz finding out who his partner is going to be. In the parking garage, Miz was talking about everything going to the internet, and suddenly he was interrupted by a honking horn, and out of the limo walked Asuka. Miz asked, "Is that my tag partner?" And he said, "That's exactly who I wanted." She said, "We will win, partner." Miz declared they are winning, and they hugged. It's a strange pairing, but, why not? Graves talked about other pairings, such as Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss, and Finn Balor and Sasha Banks. He wondered who the boss will be in that pairing with Balor and Banks. Bliss walked up to Asuka backstage and told her she got lucky last week. She said her luck is running out, though. She said when Jax hears what she called her, "I wouldn't want to be you." Sheamus and Cesaro made their way to the ring. After the break, the announcers welcomed viewers who were watching on Sky in New Zealand. And then Sheamus and Cesaro took on Apollo Crews and Titus O'Neil, with Dana Brooke in their corner. Cole said Titus is trying to recruit his mixed match challenge partner Nia Jax to join Titus Worldwide. Graves said, "Hey, everyone wants to be on Titus Worldwide. Even NFL players have been calling Titus for advice and opportunity recently." Booker asked Graves if he really believes that. When he claims that, Graves said, "Sure, why wouldn't I?" Titus sold a leg injury after a bump at ringside. Then Sheamus and Cesaro isolated Crews. Cole said the bar reminds him of APA with that smash mouth style. Crews eventually tagged in Titus, who rallied against Cesaro. He played to the crowd and then power slammed Cesaro for a 2 count. Sheamus distracted Titus, so Cesaro hit Titus from behind. Sheamus then kicked Titus in the face. Crews interjected himself and dove onto Cesaro at ringside. Sheamus then looked that direction, and Titus rolled up Sheamus for the win. The announcers reacted with shock as Crews and Titus celebrated. Graves said that Dana has a win, finally, to put in the other column for once, the winning column. The announcers hyped King is Born as the official theme song for the Royal Rumble. Cole said they were seconds away from Brock Lesnar coming out, but they showed last week's angle first. Then Lesnar and Paul Heyman came out to the ring. Heyman introduced himself and his client. He said that they are old school, but it's never blinded them to the fact that, quote, "This is a progressive industry, always in need of a new style. Always in need of new and fresh, innovative ways to both present the product and the advertising and marketing of the product to the core audience and the general public worldwide." He said they'll have to forgive him tonight for being a bit of a hypocrite because they've gotten away from something that is old school. And that isn't for the betterment of the product, and it takes away from the historic nature of the tenure of the Universal Heavyweight Champion Brock Lesnar. He said the old school way of promoting a title match was to find a challenger to step up and challenge the champion. He said they've gotten away from that because the Universal title isn't marketed as who can step up against Lesnar, but rather how can Brock Lesnar survive this predicament. He said he doesn't like it, and Brock thinks the whole concept sucks. Heyman said last week Lesnar took Kane's best shot and laughed in Kane's face, the same way Lesnar is going to do it at the Rumble. He talked about facing 2 challengers. He said the question is whether he'll pin Strowman or Kane, or stack them on top of each other and pin both. Lesnar smiled, acknowledging that is the 3 options he was thinking of too. Losing, in other words, is not an option. Heyman said Lesnar is the most dominant champion in the history of WWE, and he has yet to see anyone who can outfight his Ultimate Fighter. And then Lesnar's music played as if to end the segment, and as Lesnar and Heyman moved back up the ramp, I'm thinking another easy day, another easy payday for Brock, but I was thinking that too soon. And I noticed they were actually using a different camera angle than usual to show Lesnar walking up the ramp with Heyman behind him, and it was for a reason, because suddenly Kane attacked him. They brawled backstage where Strowman suddenly joined in. He threw Lesnar onto the table where a crate fell on top of him. Strowman then rammed Kane with a traveling case and threw it onto him. Strowman pulled a grappling hook out of the crate and threw it up onto the staging backdrop truss. It was quite the throw. This is where I believe it became a pre-tape segment, because for all kinds of reasons, including I don't think they would have trusted Braun to do that on live TV. That was quite the toss. He pulled on it, and it tipped over and then crashed onto Lesnar and Kane. And we're talking about a truss that's like, 3 stories high. It was like giant. Heyman gasped, "Oh my God." Strowman yelled and walked away, and the camera showed Lesnar and Kane under the truss. I thought, as far as the promo goes, it was more good mic work from Heyman, who just conveys that Lesnar's this big deal. And I like saying, hey, it's not fair, but don't worry. It's just, does he pin one or both of them? Another big stunt moment for Braun to solidify that aspect of his brand. Is it too corny and cheesy to have this stuff falling on top of people, or is it just a good visual where Braun kind of has this category that he gets to go to, which is big stunt moments? And I thought it was well done for what it was. You could kind of wonder why they had that hook around, just lying around in a case, or what Strowman was looking for. But I think overall there was more positive than negative to it. After the break, Cole commented on a replay, and then they cut backstage to Lesnar being pulled out from under the taller truss, and he could barely move as Heyman looked like he had just seen his dog run over by a bus and a mother duck with a bunch of ducklings run over at the same time. I mean, he was distraught. Kane crawled out himself as Lesnar was wheeled out on a gurney. Heyman was beating himself up, saying, "I didn't even see him coming. I'm sorry." As Lesnar was put in an ambulance, Lesnar said, "Get me out of here." Heyman instead got in with him, and the ambulance drove off. Gray said Strowman went a little too far, and Cole said, "A little?" Yeah, a little. Samoa Joe made his ring entrance, then Rhino and Heath Slater began to head to the ring as they cut to a break. After the break, Samoa Joe took on Rhino one-on-one. By the way, Joe and Rhino could share a wardrobe. If one of them loses their luggage, they can just share luggage. They have the same body, or pretty close to it. Joe took it to Rhino early. Booker said this should be a good contest on paper. Cole wondered if Rhino was 100% after the Strowman beatdown last week. Joe pummeled Rhino with forearms. Joe hit an STO for a 2 count a minute in. Rhino teased a comeback eventually by lifting Joe briefly on his shoulders, but Joe slipped out of it and applied the coquina clutch for the win. Went about 3 minutes. I like the idea of giving Joe a win after a high-profile loss against Roman. All right, so then Charlie Caruso interviewed Joe afterwards. She asked if it took some of the sting off of his loss to score a win this week. Joe said last week wasn't a loss. He said Reigns' little win was merely a Pyrrhic victory. He said that's a victory that comes at such a great cost, you might as well have it marked as a loss. He said Reigns has beaten years off of his career every time he stepped in the ring with him. And trust me, the cracks in the foundation are coming. And when it all comes crumbling down, I'm going to be there to finish the job. He said until that time, he will pursue more worthy things. He announced his entrance into the Rumble. Caruso asked how he feels he'll match up against 29 other superstars and legends, such as Randy Orton, Shinsuke Nakamura, and John Cena. Joe stopped her when she said Cena. He said when it comes to his career, Cena is a name he'll never forget, and in the Rumble, he'll be the first name he eliminates. Interesting. That certainly came across as a hint that Samoa Joe versus John Cena is in the cards. Backstage, Bliss asked Jax how Enzo's doing. Jax said, he'll be fine, not like you care. Bliss said she does care because she's strong and beautiful and an irresistible force who can literally do anything. Just totally buttering her up. She said she's worried Enzo's holding her back. Jax said Enzo motivated her because she wants to be a champion like him. She said she's entering the Rumble. Bliss said, oh, you're the favorite to win. But some think Asuka is the favorite. Bliss said if she can take Asuka out before she enters the Rumble, then she can win, and they'll end up wrestling at WrestleMania and finally having that dream match. Jax said she knows Bliss is just upset she lost to Asuka last week. Bliss said Asuka has been talking trash. Jax asked what Asuka said about her, and Bliss said, I don't want to tell you now. I know how you get. Bliss said she knows her insecurities, and she's not going to say something that'll hurt her feelings. I think she's kind of implying, well, it could be multiple things. Jax got worked up and really wanted to know. Bliss told her, don't shoot the messenger. And then she said, Asuka said, and then she leaned in and whispered something to her. And Jax said, she said that? Do you speak Japanese? And Bliss said, no. And Jax said, well, Asuka doesn't speak English. And then she walked away. Bliss realized she was exposed for her manipulations, except for the fact that Asuka was speaking English earlier in the show. Not fluent English, but English. Asuka then made her ring entrance after the commercial break for her apparent match. Graves reiterated that he thinks Asuka will win the Rumble, even with Jax in the match. They talked more about Asuka teaming with Miz. Jax then showed up out of nowhere and gave Asuka an electric chair and a flip splash on her mid-ring. Booker said history will be made, and Jax wants to make that history. So fans did not get to see Asuka wrestle, although they did not hype it as a match, so it didn't feel like something was being taken away. The announcers hyped the formidable Royal Rumble lineup so far. And then they showed Reigns, Seth, and Jordan trying to discuss strategy without driving each other crazy. And then in match number 6, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and Jason Jordan took on Finn Balor, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson, the Championship Club, the Champions Club against Balor Club. Graves talked about Balor, Gallows, and Anderson traveling the same path through Japan. Graves said the aftershocks and what they created in Japan are still being felt today. Kind of a reference to Wrestle Kingdom and Bullet Club and Kenny Omega. Booker said these two are on the same page instinctually after so many years teaming together. They showed some pictures of them teaming together earlier in their career, actually just hanging out together, which was cool. It added credibility to the notion that these have a history. They're not just throwing them together for some storyline, that there really is a history. Kind of like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They pulled those old photos out. Cole said they formed, quote, a club that took over Japan for a number of years. Graves said they traveled and trained together with the goal of being elite. He said they are often imitated and never duplicated because there's only one original Balor Club. I thought it was a really nice touch showing those old photos and introducing a big part of WWE's audience to the real-life history between them and the origination of the Bullet Club, even though they will not use the word bullet for probably a couple of reasons. They opened with Balor versus Seth. Nice exchanges early on in this one. Balor scored an early 1 count after a dropkick to Seth's face. He tagged Anderson in. Graves talked more about the IWGP Tag Team title history of Anderson and Gallows, saying it's an elite group they're having held those belts and the WWE tag belts. After some double teaming of Seth, Reigns tagged himself in, and Seth and Roman took it to Balor at that point. They cleared the ring. Reigns gave Anderson and Gallows a drive-by, all at the same time. They were both next to each other. They both went down. Seth then flipped over onto Balor. Jordan celebrated a little too happily for Seth and Roman's taste, and they cut to a break. And after the break, the club isolated Roman Reigns for a while. We moved into the overrun. Reigns eventually landed a Superman punch on Gallows and tagged in Seth. Seth gave Anderson a blockbuster and then dove onto Balor and Gallows at ringside. Back in the ring, he hit Anderson with a sling blade. He landed a Falcon Arrow next. He looked over for a tag, but there wasn't anyone available as Jordan was at ringside checking on Reigns. How convenient. Jordan eventually helped out, but Anderson landed a spinebuster on Seth seconds later for a near fall. Jordan clapped to encourage Seth to tag him in. Gallows tagged in and hit Jordan before he could get a tag from Seth. Seth landed a step-up enziguri on Gallows a second later. Reigns finally returned to the ring apron and reached for the tag. Balor tagged in and went for a sling blade, but Rollins countered with a back suplex. Jordan entered the ring and distracted the ref as Seth hot-tagged Reigns. The ref disallowed the tag. Anderson and Gallows then gave Seth their magic killer. Booker called it a rookie mistake from Jordan. Reigns yelled at Jordan, who said, "I didn't do anything. What are you talking about?" Just totally playing dumb. Almost believably so. Reigns took out his frustrations on Anderson and Gallows at ringside. When he speared Gallows, he sold a shoulder injury afterwards. Balor then dropkicked Seth as Jordan was trying to help Seth to his feet. Graves said Jordan obstructed Seth in that situation. Balor then landed the coup de grace on Seth for the win. Booker said the better team won. Seth said Jordan found himself in the wrong place twice in the closing minutes of the match. Graves said that, not Seth, but it was costly to Seth. So Balor clubbed the winner in about 16 minutes. I think it's a good decision, booking-wise, even though it was awkward with two essentially babyface tag teams, sort of. I guess Anderson and Gallows are de facto babyfaces at this point, and Jordan is sort of a babyface. So minus, an actual overt turn. So it was kind of an awkward situation in terms of who do the fans choose, but I like that Balor Club got the win because they're a new team. You want to give them a win. It was very tainted. It didn't hurt Reigns or Seth because of the circumstances, but I think it was smart to give Balor Club the win, and it obviously built up the frustration Reigns and Seth feel towards Jason Jordan. After the match, in fact, Reigns continued to berate Jordan. Jordan rolled to the floor and asked Seth how he was doing. Seth was not happy, but he seemed out of it still. Then Bo, Curtis, and Miz ambushed Jordan, Seth, and Reigns. They triple-teamed Reigns in the ring. Cole said he waited for his moment and struck. Miz hit the skull-crushing finale. Booker called Miz an impact player and seemed to approve of their attack. Miz and Miztourage then gave Reigns the Shield's triple power bomb as Cole plugged. The IC title match coming up in 2 weeks, and the fans chanted one more time as the show went off the air. So there you have it. I thought it was a good edition of Monday Night Raw. I thought that they moved a number of storylines forward in a good, believable way, and I thought it was fun. So that is that. If you haven't yet, check out Travis Bryant joining me on the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast. You can get the full show plus the VIP Extra, where we answer additional email questions right here at PW Torch VIP. Thanks, everybody, for your support, and until next time, Wade Keller signing off.